Hi friends, this is Josh from musiclikeyoumeanit.com. Welcome to the first video in the From Start to Finish Metalcore series. Today I'm going to talk about kick gating and compression, and I'm specifically going to show you how I applied those tools to get the kick tone that you can hear in this mix. Let me start by playing a quick clip of the song. So before I process any audio in a mix, I like to have a big picture goal of what it is that I'm aiming for as the final outcome of the move I'm going to make. So why would I reach for a gate or a compressor on a kick drum? Well, the goal of gating and compression, just generally speaking, is to control the dynamics or consistency of a source, to clean up the spill in a live mic track, or to shape the envelope of a sound. On the live kick track in this mix, I actually want to do all three of those things. So I'm going to show you today what plugins I used and how I used them to achieve that final kick tone. To start with, the first plugin on my live kick track is the Radix drum leveler. I love this plugin on live kick because it allows me to get a much more consistent sound very quickly without very much fiddling. So in this plugin, I'm actually doing both compression and gating. And I'll show you how those sound separately. So let's start with the compression. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the gate here. And let me play this kick in track soloed so that you can hear what this compression is doing. So you can see a little bit on the readout here and also in the meter of the track. This is actually not pushing the level of the kick up a lot, but you can really hear how the kick drum punches through more once the compression is applied. The way that you dial this compressor in is by setting a target level here, which I have at -6 dB. And basically the compressor will push quieter sounds up towards that level and pull louder sounds back. In this case, I have the target level above all of my kicks. So what it's doing is raising the level of the quieter kicks so that they're a little closer to the sound of the louder kicks. This gives me more consistency across faster parts in the song and allows the kick to punch through and be a little clearer, since the attack is a lot of what does that in the mix. So after compressing this kick, I'm also using the gate in this plugin. Let me show you with the compression on the difference that turning the gate on and off makes in solo here. You can hear that basically removes the snare bleed from this track entirely, which is a great start to the kick tone I'm going for. The other thing this gate is doing, besides cleaning up some of the longer cymbal bleed and the snare bleed in this track, is that it is cutting down on some of the length of the body of the kick tone. So this is what I was referring to when I said you can use a gate to shape the envelope of a sound. Here, the kick has a whole lot of sub and punch in the low end, which is great. But I actually don't want that to be ringing out during the faster sections of the song. This gate then is helping dial in that low end a bit, which will help me later on in my plugin chain because there's less of that rolling low end to deal with. Let me show you one more time with the gate on and off, and this time pay specific attention to the low end to see if you can hear how this gate is helping control it a bit. So it's not taking away low end from the entire kick sound like an EQ might, but instead it's shaping the length of the low end on this tone. So I get to keep the body that I want, but I get to have it more contained. I'm going to talk about the rest of the plugins in my kick chain in future videos. But suffice it to say, I've actually applied some more EQ and saturation farther down the chain after this gating. So what I started to notice as I did that was that there was still a little bit too much cymbal bleed in this track. In order to deal with that, I've used the second plugin in the chain here, which is the FabFilter Pro MB. Now this is a multiband compressor, and the way I've set it up here is just with one band. And I've actually set that in expand mode. So this is acting as an expander instead of a compressor. One other neat feature I've used in this plugin is that I've dialed in the sidechain for this band to focus on a different frequency. I did that by selecting the free floating option down here, and then you can see this little line represents where my sidechain is listening to. Now this kick has a whole lot of sub in it, so I know that when the sub comes into this track, that means the kick is being played. I don't necessarily know that when I get some high frequencies, those are the kick for sure. There's a chance those could be cymbals or a snare drum, and I don't want this expander to open on cymbals especially. So by listening to the low frequencies, I can say whenever a kick is being played for sure, open up the top end so that the kick attack can come through on this track, and then right away close down the top end. So I have a super fast attack and a pretty fast release here because I really just want to let the high end of the beater attack through and then clamp down on everything else. So let me show you again with this track in solo, and I'm going to bypass and enable this plugin so that you can hear what it's doing. So that has very effectively removed pretty much all of the remaining cymbal bleed in this track, which is great because it means I can use this kick in track for the majority of my kick tone in this mix. I'll talk in a future video about the sample reinforcement I've done, but because I was able to dial in the gating and compression on this kick so tightly, I didn't have to lean on a sample very much to make the sound that you hear in the final mix. One last thing I want to caution you about when it comes to compression and gating is that these are very important choices to make in the context of the mix. So I like showing you what a plugin is doing in solo because then you can really hear it more clearly. But it's easy to dial in compression and gates that are super tight when you're in solo. And then when you bring back the whole mix, it turns out that you've cut too much body or you've smushed the sound too much. On the other side of things, it's possible that the bleed in a track could sound good, or that you at least need a little bit of bleed. So when you play the entire mix and dial in your gating and compression that way, you can know that you're using only the amount that you need for the song and not anything extra that you're going to have to fight against later in the mix. So those are my settings for gating and compression on this live kick track. My question for you today is this. Have you ever struggled with dialing in compression or gates on drums, and especially the kick drum? If you have, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear about what your experiences have been, and if you've taken any different approaches to solve this problem. And finally, if you're interested in making better music, whether as a band member, music producer, mix engineer, or even just a music fan who really likes this genre, I definitely recommend checking out my free mini workshop, which is available at musiclikeyoummeanit.com/workshop. There you're going to find some great actionable tips on writing better music, recording, producing, and even playing better music. And these are tips that apply no matter what your skill level is. So I think there's something there for everyone. Thanks for joining me today for this video. Keep making great music, everyone, and I will look forward to seeing you next time.